Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I welcome you all to this topic, and I think it's just something about personal cross and some information about what happens around the time of death. And it's an important topic because sooner or later we will all die, and it's always good to know, especially in the current environment where we are, how the process is, what happens. So we know how to manage our expectations, and especially as regards, we as Muslims usually want our burial to take place as soon as possible. So we know the steps involved and we know how to manage them ahead, so we can expedite the process as soon as possible. So, but basically, to start with, when someone dies, so we classify it into, is it an expected death? Or is it something that is unexpected? Is it something sudden? Like if it's an old man that has been sick for a while, admitted in the hospital for maybe 2 months, and everyone is already thinking this person is going to die. That is a different process. Or if it's a young man, maybe was riding his bike, knocked down by a car, or maybe drowned, or we're suspecting manslaughter, domestic abuse, husband and wife fighting, one of them dies, or a child dies. When that happens, it follows a different process. So if somebody has died and is expected, then the location also matters. If it's at home, that's a different process. If it's in the hospital, it's a different process. Okay? So if it's at home, if it's in the hospital, the managing team, the doctors, the nurses who have been looking after the patient, will inform the next of kin. Okay, so person has passed away. So this person, somebody they were expecting to die anyway. So we inform them, okay, this person has passed away. So once they get that information, then we send to the morgue, to the mortuary, and then contact the registrar's office, the medical examiner who will issue the medical certificate of death. Then the registrar's office will register the death and then issue the burial certificate. If it's at home, you can't just go and bury your relative. So you have to contact the GP or the district nurse, and then you contact the funeral director who will take the body away. At this point, the body will stay with the funeral director. There will be more information about the funeral director later on. So the funeral director, from there, will contact the registrar's office, then they issue a medical certificate of death, and then the burial certificate is issued. It's at that stage we can bury the dead. So this is just like a brief overview. So this is for somebody that's expected.
Can we ask questions, or do we wait till the end?
You can ask questions.
Okay, so at the hospital, what if the person has no next of kin?
So there's usually a court-appointed someone that represents people with no next of kin.
Okay.
So we call them the INCA, the independent. It's like an independent person that they are trained for that. Independent, like they make like an advocate for the person. Okay. They will look into their circumstances and just act as their next of kin by proxy. Okay. So to make sure that they still get all the necessary. Okay.
Is that person necessary? And I'm asking this because in our community sometimes you have a person who has passed away.
Yeah.
They were Muslim or they are Muslim and they have no next of kin.
Yeah.
So is the IMCA person, do they take the person's faith into consideration?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
So that's one.
Yeah.
A person who has reverted to Islam.
Yes.
And has left wishes that they want to be buried as a Muslim, yes, but have next of kin who are non-Muslim.
Yes.
Is that something also that does that get treated under this, or?
Yes, it depends. Because if they have left their wishes, if it's documented and written, it's binding. So you have to respect their wishes and put that into consideration in managing their end of life. Okay. So
at home, if the person passes away, are you saying the body cannot be removed till the GP has been does the GP come?
Not necessarily.
No.
So the funeral director. Inform the funeral director. If it's expected, we are talking of expected.
Yeah.
So if it's expected, you inform the GP just needs to be informed.
Okay.
and also the funeral director. So it's of course, when you now update the GP, you have to tell them about the funeral director you've contacted. We'll give you a list of funeral directors later on.
Okay.
The funeral director you've contacted, and then, so the GP has to know that this person has passed away and has to know where the body is.
Okay.
Because the GP is likely going to be the one to sign the medical certificate of death before the registrar's office can issue a death certificate for the person to be registered at the registrar's office.
Okay.
So the GP has to be informed, but they don't arrange the transport to the funeral director.
Okay.
You contact the funeral director, pay the fees, then the body stays with the funeral director.
Okay.
And then once everything is sorted out, then the burial process can take place.
Okay. So an old person, sorry, I'm just
No, it's good,
trying
it's
to, an old person who has passed away at home,
Yeah.
they call imam or someone from the masjid. We go, and the first thing we make sure is we call the funeral, that we
Yes.
make sure they've called the GP,
Yes.
and then we call the funeral director.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So if the death is unexpected, young, old, male, female, child, adult, the first thing you do is not the GP now. You have to inform the ambulance. They come to take the body to the hospital, definitely, to be sure to certify the death, because to be sure that this person has died. You have to inform the police that we have an unexpected death. We've called the ambulance. Sometimes I think even the police might arrange the ambulance. I think this one can be either ambulance first or police first. I would suggest police first.
The,
so that
the police first.
I think
Police
police
first.
contact, they'll come anyway.
So it's
Yeah.
the emergency number you call.
Yeah,
So it's
the
not,
emergency-
and they would then,
and they will come
yeah,
and then
yeah,
arrange all
yeah.
these things. So, but this kind of, then you also let the GP know.
Okay.
The GP is also informed that, okay, we have an unexpected death, we've informed the police have arranged an ambulance, or we have arranged an ambulance to take the patient to the hospital. Sometimes why I say it can be mixed, because sometimes because if you are not experienced about certifying that a patient is dead, they might be in coma, they might not be dead. So if an ambulance comes, they might be able to do some resuscitation and then tell you patient is not dead, you rush to the emergency department and they might be able to save the patient. But if it's obviously dead, then police first. So it can be either of the two. Emergency number and then let the process
run.
take away. Yeah, so then
we know that it's important to call ambulance GP, but what is the role of police in this case?
yeah, because it's an unexpected death, they have to be sure, because if to say, let's say there are just two people in the house, husband and wife, and then you just call, oh, my wife is dead, they might be like, oh, did you kill her? They have to be sure that there is no element of foul play.
Yeah.
So that's why, because if it's an expected death and they know, okay, the wife has been sick for about a month and things like that, everybody, they have come from the hospital has said, if she deteriorates, you don't need to come back to the hospital anymore. So just continue to manage her at home, and then when she dies, so that's different. But your wife is maybe young, 30 years old, and just, oh, my wife is dead, we've buried her. That's foul play. So it's just to rule out foul play and make sure that there's no
crime.
Exactly, no crime going on.
So I think in this one, that confusion of calling ambulance or just say call emergency number.
Call
So
emergency number.
That
yeah.
way, they will take
Yeah.
over the process and
Yeah.
let us know whether it's.
Yeah. Most important thing to know that in this case, the patient, the body is taken into the care of the coroner. So we'll learn to know. So who is the coroner? The coroner is an independent person that investigates unexpected death, either in a hospital or at home. So they're either a lawyer or a doctor. Those are the two professions you can be to qualify to be a coroner. So what they do is they look at the circumstances behind the death, rule out any foul play, and sometimes they might even request an autopsy if they request if the cause of death is not clear. Because even in hospital, a patient dies and we have no idea why the patient has died. In that case, even from the hospital, we refer to the coroner and then do all different kind of investigations. They look through the medical files, look, have we made a mistake somewhere? Is it because of the surgery they recently had? And if it's still not clear, then they request an autopsy. and from the autopsy they can get some more information. And if they think any crime has been committed, they take it up with the police. If everything is sorted out at the end of the day and they are able to find a cause of death that maybe was missed earlier on, then they just round up the case and then issue the death certificate. Okay?
And all that can have a bearing on the time that the body is released.
Exactly. If a coroner is involved, it's going to be a long process.
Yeah.
If a coroner is involved, it's going to be a long process. Okay. This was introduced on the 9th of September last year. It now stipulates that all deaths in an health setting that is not investigated by a coroner will be checked by NHS medical examiners. In the past, if a specialty or any unit is managing a patient and the patient dies, the managing team can usually go to the medical examiner's office, issue the death certificate, and then to the registrar, and then it goes. But now, from 9th September, it's been mandated that even if the cause of death is clear, you still have to discuss with the medical examiner. And the medical examiner is a doctor in the hospital whose role, they cannot be involved in management of the patient. So their role is to look at what you have done in the hospital about managing it, just to be sure, just to be double sure that nobody's playing any hanky-panky or anything, hiding anything. You understand? So their role, because they are doctors in the hospital, some of them are involved in managing this patient. So if a medical examiner has been involved in managing a patient that has died, he cannot act as medical examiner for that patient.
Independent.
So it has to be another person that has not been involved. It's just check and balances to be sure nobody is playing any tricks on anyone. So,
and is that one just for hospital death?
This is just for hospital deaths. So before in the past, if it was this is for hospital deaths that are not referred to the coroner.
Of course.
So some of the criteria that meet the coroner's referral, like if somebody commits suicide, maybe and they come to the hospital, try to commit suicide and they're brought to the hospital, automatic coroner.
Okay.
Road traffic accident, automatic coroner. Surgery, maybe a patient has had surgery in the past 30 days and then they die, automatic coroner. But if, let's say, somebody 80 years old had pneumonia in hospital for 1 week, straightforward, or maybe heart attack and then they died, those are straightforward cases. They don't need to be involved, the coroner does not need to be involved, but the medical examiner still needs to go through that case. So now what we do is, a patient dies under us, we go to the medical examiner's office, we discuss with them, this patient has died, this is what we think has killed the patient. Then they look at it, oh, I agree with you, oh, no, I don't agree with you. We have to discuss further about this case, things like that. Then we reach a common ground, and then afterwards, if they are all happy, then we issue the medical certificates, and then we carry on. Okay.
So in practice, that really doesn't affect us, because if they die at the hospital, we don't do anything about it.
You don't do anything.
And once they die at home, we don't really do this.
Yeah, no.
Okay. This is mainly for.
This is mainly for.
But it does affect us in the way that we are the interface between the hospital, the funeral director, and the family.
So does it mean a longer wait or?
It depends. If it's straightforward, somebody else died pneumonia, hospital for 1 week and died, and we know it's a result of the pneumonia, it usually won't affect because it's straightforward. The medical examiner will usually agree with you, and then the process
things
can
get
carry
released to the.
Yeah. But then, so in this case, before it was the managing team. Of course, we still inform the next of kin that this patient has died. So we're waiting to discuss with the medical examiner to discuss this death. But after we discuss with the medical examiner, when he's satisfied about the cause of death and everything, he will still call the next of kin, explain to them we've gone through this death, we think this was caused the death, and then also call the GP, inform them, and then carry on. So that's usually straightforward. If a coroner is involved, that's a different case. Okay? So the role of the medical examiner, look through the case, agree with the cause of death, contact the next of kin, contact the GP, and then agree to the medical certificate of death being issued because they have to sign it too, and then inform the registrar's office. But I think where this can affect the timing of the burial is because they work in hours. They work only during weekdays up to 4 p.m. So if a death was to happen 5 p.m. on a Monday, before you can discuss with the medical examiner will be on a Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. And it depends on the queue and things like that.
If it was a Friday at 5, you'd have to wait until
Friday at 5 is much more difficult because you have to wait till Monday before you can discuss with them. So that takes significantly longer.
But that Monday is when you say discuss, it will be the medical people discussing it.
Yeah.
The only pay people come is after this is all done and the certificate goes.
And it's not usually straightforward because even like if I'm on duty today and a patient dies, patient I've managed, if they die, and I'm not on duty tomorrow, it becomes a challenge because if I'm the only one involved in the management of the patient that really knows about the patient, to discuss with the medical examiner, they would expect that I will be the one to discuss with the medical examiner. But then because I'm not on duty tomorrow, it becomes a bit of a challenge.
You have to wait.
So you have to wait. But the alternative now that they have made it a bit easier is my colleagues, even if they have not been involved in the management of the patient, they can go through the notes and discuss with the medical examiner. So they will agree on the cause of death and everything. The only thing is they won't be able to issue a medical certificate of death until I come in. The alternative is to contact the GP because the GP is always managing the patient and the patient is under them for life. So the GP can also issue the medical certificate of death. So
all these ads, so you can get your
on holiday from them.
If you're on holiday, but the GP can come in and issue.
But it will add maybe few days,
exactly. There's a section where it says, where it asks you, is there any religious reason to expedite the burial of this patient? Once you tick that box, so they take that into consideration and try to make the process as fast as possible. In fact, sometimes they keep calling us, oh, please can you issue a medical certificate of death for this patient because the relatives are trying to get the body and things like that. So they expedite it.
So once this is done and the medical certificate is done, that's when the more people can pick up the body.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. Okay.
And so because you need medical certificate of death to take to the registrar's office,
Initiate.
and then they will call you the next of kin, they will ask for some documents, and then you will tell you the rest of the process. We'll get there.
Just before you go, the second to the last bullet you're saying, along with the name and contact details of the next of kin, who is registering the death?
Yeah.
So is it the next of kin that registered the death?
The next of kin.
Yes.
Not the hospital?
No, it's the next of kin.
You see for that slide, you see why, because the hospital we won't have all the information they will need.
Okay.
The next of kin will have. Why this change? The main thing is because of the medical examiner being involved in all hospital deaths that's not referred to the coroner. That's a significant change. I'll tell you the reason why. And they also want to modernize the death certificate to expedite the process, smoothen the process, because it's a grieving process for the next of kin. They want to make it easy for them and help them along the way to manage their this event. But significantly, it's because there was a GP, I think, in the 90s, early 20s, Harold Shipman. He killed about 215 people.
Yeah.
And because he had that power to, as a GP, to issue medical certificates, so nobody was investigating him then, so he was like, he just carried on.
Because it does happen with the nurse, there's a nurse who was doing that in America, there's many times.
Yeah, so things like that, so they just want to make sure that check and balance so they can't just start killing people. You can't say, this patient has died under me and then you issue medical certificate. They have to know, okay, is there any foul play involved and things like that. But I think
that was a long time.
So now, once everything is sorted out, like this is at home now, expected death. So to register the death, which is not straightforward death, which is not referred to a coroner. So the GP or whoever, usually the GP in this case, if it's at home, will issue the medical certificate of death. It will be sent to the local register, and then you will contact the local register within 5 days of the issuance of this medical certificate of death. And this, I think this is the address of the registrar that concerns us in this region. So that's their contact number and address. So if you want to take pictures, so I can send the lectures to everyone later. Okay, and as similar to the medical examiner also, they work within only in hours, they don't work out of hours. But they said out of hours available on Saturdays and Sundays excluding bank holiday. So maybe it's limited activities over the weekend. So, but if it's referred to a coroner, that's a different kettle of fish. So the coroner will contact the family that, okay, we're investigating this death, and then they will do their investigations, which could be very short, could be very long. Because sometimes they refer deaths to coroner, and the coroner will say, I don't need to be involved.
Send it back.
Send it back, and then that becomes straightforward. But then if there's any foul play suspected, then it takes a while. So once the coroner has spoken to the next of kin to just preempt them about that, they do their investigations. Once they have concluded, it's sent paperwork to the local register office, and then the register office will contact the next of kin to arrange an appointment. So after the coroner finished their investigations, they issue the order for burial form 101, which is basically like the medical certificate of death, and then can carry on. So now, appointment at the registrar's office by the next of kin now. The medical certificate of death has been issued. So they will contact next of kin to bring along these items: the birth certificate, council tax bill, driving license, marriage certificate, NHS card, passport, proof of address. This document, you see, this is why the next of kin needs to be involved. Hospital cannot provide this. So they take this along, and then they will ask some information, the date and place of death, all these other questions, and then after everything has been completed, the paperwork has been done, then you note that you will have provided the funeral director if the body is not with the funeral director yet. So you provide the funeral director, and after that they issue what we call a green form. With this green form, then the burial can take place. So with the green form, you just liaise with the funeral director, and then you can carry on with the death, with the burial. Okay? So this is just a summary of everything I've said. So death happens if it's expected on the right side. So if it's an expected death, so if it's at home, it's just inform the GP, district nurse, inform the funeral house, and then from then, registrar's office is informed, medical certificate of death is completed, then the death is registered, and then they issue the burial certificate, and then the burial can take place. If it's in the hospital, it's the medical examiner is involved, who will inform the next of kin and the GP. After if they are happy with everything, issue a medical certificate of death, the death is registered, then the burial certificate is given, and then the burial can take place. If it's an unexpected death, if it's in hospital, coroner is informed, they can do their investigation plus or minus inquest, which is just basically an investigation including autopsy. Once they've rounded that up, issue the medical certificate of death, register the death, then the burial certificate. If it's unexpected death at home, we call emergency services, ambulance, police, whichever of them, inform the GP, inform the coroner, inquest will take place. Once it's rounded up, medical certificate of death is issued, and then death is registered, then the burial certificate is signed. So this is just like a summary of everything we've talked about. Okay? And now about the time frame. So it's not impossible to get the death for a person to be buried within 24 hours. It's not impossible, it's just very hard. The typical process takes about 1 to 2 weeks. Longer if a coroner is involved. But let's say somebody died 4 p.m. on a Sunday evening. Monday morning, you are the first, the clinical team is on board. They've gone to the medical examiner, straightforward death. They've spoken to the medical examiner, they issue the certificate of death. They contact the registrar's office straight away. They issue the burial certificate. By 2-3, the body can be buried. But this is just like an outlier. It's usually not feasible.
Best case scenario.
Yeah, that's the bestest case scenario ever. So that's usually but usually it takes about a week or 2 and can be longer if the coroner is involved. And I think this is an estimate of the burial costs around here. For Sandwell residents, about £1,300. And then for the grave, you need about £3,000 to lease for about 100 years. And the funeral director, depends on which one you use, they will charge their own amount. There's an arrival, if it's on a weekend, there's an extra amount. So, out of hours burial, there's a £15 extra charge, and so on. So it's if you look at this total amount, you need about 5,000 plus.
Yeah.
Support with funeral costs, as I mentioned. In deceased estates, obviously the money they've left behind can be used for that. Their pension fund can be applied, and you can apply for this SF200 funeral expense payment for an adult fund. So the UK government can help bear some of this cost, and also for the child under 18, which is maybe what
That's why
they
I
applied for you,
maybe.
and then I'm sure it's going to knock off a significant amount of the cost.
But
These are examples of funeral directors around us,
Yeah.
and the cemeteries around us. We have these two
Yeah,
cemeteries. Organ donation. The system the UK applies now is an opt-out system, which means all of us, we have automatically said we are going to donate our organs when we die. But it doesn't mean they will just start hacking you and taking your organs when you die. They will still speak to your next of kin. If, however, you don't want to donate your organ, you have to opt out. You call this number and they will take your name off the register of the organ.
I mean, when I register now, when I register the TP, automatically they will tell you automatically. But if you don't want, there is a form you fill it directly and the link. You fill it and you say, I don't want the out.
But even though we are automatically registered, before they take your organ, they still discuss with your next of kin before they proceed.
But we notice all of them almost, they are within operated. They are all of them almost. Even old people, you see them, they've been operated.
Only bodies.
No. I don't know.
No. Because there is the, we call them the snod people in the hospital. They won't touch it, but because even before they consider you for organ donation, they want LD organs, obviously. So they want, if you have died from something that's going to have affected your organ is not going to be useful for the next person, so they won't touch it. Even when we have had young patients that have died and they have not, they are about to harvest their organs, it's a big discussion involving the consultants, the nurses, the next of kin, and that snod team, and including there's a team that would come to harvest the organs if everything goes through. So if you've seen maybe some autopsy, maybe it was involving the coroner, or maybe the coroner might have been involved, and that's why you see it, but they won't harvest the organ without the next, or maybe they've contacted the next of kin. The next of kin has given the go-ahead for them to take the organ. So, but they won't, because it's unethical, so they won't touch the body. In that case, on the last note, there's a tell me once system the UK government organizes. That means you don't have to keep telling this one, keep telling that one about the death. So it's just a service that allows you to report a death to most government departments at the same time, like maybe the bank, HMRC and things like that. So when you register the death, you get a unique reference number which you use to activate the tell me service, and it just tells everyone at once. So I think it just helps with the grievance, because you can't remember to tell everyone, or maybe DBLA or this one and that one. So once you get the number, register the get the number, you activate tell me one service.
You have to pay for it.
I'm not sure. I doubt it. I don't think so.